It's been a while, about a month. Totally failing at this once a week thing. The algorithm is not liking it, but whatever. This isn't my job. This is just something I do for fun and whatever. I'm boxing up some pickups for a couple orders for some customers, and one set is my P90 set. This particular model is the 252. Unrelated to my pickups, I did recently see a video from our favorite Uncle Larrius, and where he's working on his buddy's guitar, which just happens to be Vince Gill. He just, here, take this guitar home with you and work your magic, right? Like, but it's Vince Gill. So anyways, and in the video he talks about a trick he does to get the most out of a P90 pickup, and I wanted to kind of explain why that works, why his trick works, because I'm out of other ideas, and I think this is a good one to go over, because I think majority of us are all nerds, and we like to go down rabbit holes, don't we? So that's what we're going to do today. It's going to be a short one. I'm going to maybe do some drawing just to kind of explain some stuff. All right, so like I mentioned in the intro there, Uncle Larrius, Larry Tom Bukovac. If you don't know that name, don't worry. I've got the link for the video that sparked this video. I got the link in the description. Go watch that. It's actually a pretty good video. All his videos are pretty good. I particularly like the tabletop stuff that he does where he works on guitars and just talks about stuff. And that's what this one is. But in the video, just to kind of give you the idea of it, Vince Gill says, hey, why don't you take my 54 Les Paul home with you at the end of the session or whatever they were doing, and work your magic with do the P90 thing that you do and all that. Essentially what he does is it does like packs foam and stuff to get, especially the bridge pickup, right? To get the bridge pickup up higher. And in the video, he says that he's not sure why it's better by raising the pickup versus just the pole pieces, but it just works. I'm assuming a guy like him who's been playing professionally in Nashville since the early 90s probably knows why, and probably knows somewhat how they're put together, causing that particular thing. I'm sure he knows. I mean, he's got a lot of friends that actually work at all the big name guitar tech places, Groons and all that stuff. So he's got some pretty high profile tech friends that know their shit. So I'm sure at some point he learned how. He just probably didn't want to get into it or something. Or maybe he doesn't know because he doesn't have to know. Because as long as they work, he knows what sounds to get out of what pickups or what guitars. And his job is to show up for a session, listen to the track, and then go, oh, I know what sound to get out of that, and be able to dial in tones or whatever the producer asks him to. Like, he needs to be able to dial that in within seconds. And that's probably why a lot of those guys are when they're at the top of the call list for session guitar players, that's one of their many superpowers that they can do. So in the video, he's doing a setup on the guitar and doing some stuff, and on this 54 gold top. And he was saying how a lot of the old neck pickups are usually pretty good, but then you go to the bridge and they tend to thin out or whatever. A lot of people tend to back out the pull screws to get them higher, closer to the string. And his take on that is that doesn't really work. It doesn't make it sound any better. The trick is to bottom down the screws and raise the whole pickup up, right? So that's kind of what I'm going to explain here while I'm boxing up some stuff. I have here's unrelated to P90s, but this is a FC 52 based neck Telecaster pickup. I got that, and then these two P90s, 252s. So the vintage ones, like the vintage Gibsons, like their covers they're only about half the height, right? And then they're installed in the body, and they stick out a little bit. But at the bridge, especially if your bridge is up high, which even if they're low, like poking out that much, that's not a whole lot. So you tend to want to raise the whole thing up, but the cover sticks out. So there's a bit of a gap. So if you look in that video that's linked there from Tom's video, you'll see that once he does the pickup trick that he does. But the cover has nothing to do with it. The cover is just covering, like these ones are covering more. Because typically newer guitars, the bridge is higher, the neck angle is different, so the strings are higher up. So you got to get these up higher, regardless of that. So the way these are made, so I got the cover off, right? And the way these are made, I can't take them apart because they're ready to be boxed, and these ones are potted. But if you can see in there, there's the pole screws go right through the bobbin and then through the base plate. Under the bobbin and like between the bobbin and the base plate is what you call a keeper bar. Just a little bar like this, right? It's about the same thickness as the bar magnets, right? So we'll just grab that with a keeper bar, right? So you can see this keeper bar and the magnet, right? They're about the same thickness. So that allows you to then put screws on under the base plate into the bobbin to hold these two pieces together. The keeper bar does two things. One, it creates that space, but also with the holes, the pole screws go through these holes and they touch this bar, and then this fills the gap between the magnets. Now, the standard humbucker, so I've got some 59er parts here, which is my PAF, right? You have this kind of base plate, the two bobbins, but the two bobbins will have one of these magnets, right? And one of these keeper bars, just like this, right? And then you'll have your screw side bobbin, and then you'll have your slug side bobbin. The screw side bobbin goes through the keeper bar holes. The slug side bobbin just sits on top of the base plate, and the slugs are bigger in diameter, so they don't need really a spacer or anything like this to touch against the magnet. And then your two bobbins sit on top like that, right? So that's how a humbucker works, loosely, without talking about the winding and all that shit. The P90s, essentially the same, but there's one bobbin, which means they need two magnets. So right now they're probably north-south, but they would be north-south, north-south, south-north. Fat fingers are in the way, right? North-south, south-north. Typically, the Gibson ones are south on the south polarity on the pole screws. But there's two magnets, so you're getting double the magnet strength, really. You're getting double the horsepower, kind of. Maybe not exactly double, but you're getting more magnetic strength from a P90 than a humbucker. And these generally, like when you look at the PAFs, they're like anywhere in the 4,900 to 5,600 turns per bobbin. Whereas these typically you'll be in the 9 to 11,000, depending on what spec you're going for. We'll say 5,000 per bobbin for easy number on a humbucker. So each 5,000 turns on each bobbin. And let's say that makes them 4K ohms DC resistance. So together, wired in series, right, would be, about 8K, right? Whereas this, you wind it 10,000 turns, you get about 8K, something like that. Varies with your coil wire and stuff, but we're talking plain 42 gauge wire. So you're getting more magnetic strength at the pole screws here. on these on the P90s. So the height of the pickup as a whole has an effect. It does on humbuckers too, and single coils too. But I think it's just more pronounced on a P90 because there's just more magnet there. Because there's two. Basically, it's the same size and dimension. It's basically a humbucker magnet, but you put two, one on each side of the poles instead of one in between the bobbins. So I'm gonna draw some stuff just so I can show you what I mean by all this and why Uncle Larry's trick of setting of how to set the P90s, why it works and why it's better. So we're gonna go tabletop on this mess of a table and do some drawing. Okay, so let's see if we can do this drawing shit here. So we'll just imagine, you know, this is the string. Okay, you got the bridge, right? Ignore my shit drawing, but so the strings here, let's say you get a P90. We'll just do with the, we'll do with the bridge. It's the same concept with the neck, but we'll just do the bridge. So on a P90, right, you have the cover. So we'll pretend this is like, you know, cross-section cut, right? And then inside here, you have your bobbin. Right? And you've got your winding in here, right? And you've got your pole screw like this. Okay? Kind of looks like a dick, but whatever. There's your pole screw, right? Then under here you have that keeper bar, right? So that's that piece there. That's this right here, right? So your pole screw comes through here. And then you have that steel base plate. That's this piece here. So this will kind of thicken up the cover here a little bit. Okay, so that's the cover. There's the base plate. And then you have your two magnets on either side. Okay, those are magnets. Maybe I can color them up. Why not? I got a Crayola marker here from the kids. Right, so these orange things are the magnets. And then I'm going to use a pencil for the magnetic field. Right, so then this is, you know, you'll have like either springs or some foam. We'll put some foam, right, in Uncle Larry, Tom's video that's linked below in the description. He puts foam under it to get it propped up higher. Because I think in the vintage ones, like they didn't really route the pickup cavity very deep to kind of basically just screw them in and they sit where they intended. Just turns out it wasn't the optimal point. So we'll pretend these blocks are foam, right? And then your pole screw sticks out the bottom. And you've got two mounting screws that go through here, right? So through the top. So you get two screws that go through there as well that go into the body or a plate. So what happens is you've got two magnets, right? So they've got, this might not be scientifically super accurate, but you'll get the concept, right? So you got these scribbles and these scribbles, that's the magnetic field, right? As shitty as this picture looks, that's the magnetic field. When the string is higher up, let's say the bridge is, so you have a higher bridge, right? And then the body starts here. Let's say your bridge is up. People will have the tendency to raise the pole screws up higher above this. And it does work a little bit because there is magnetic strength at the pole screw. But what it does is it weakens it at this end because the magnets are all the way down here, right? So I'm going to draw another one here. Let's say this is where the body's at, okay? I'm going to draw another one here and show you what it's like if the string is higher. So we'll ignore this string here. This here's the string, right? So if we raise that, well, that's not really, make it a bit higher here. Having a heart attack. Remember that show? If you're my age or whatever. Okay, so you got the bobbin. Right, the windings are here. Keeper bar. Magnets. Right, you got your, maybe some thicker foam, let's say. Say the string is like, right, so you see how like the distance here is farther, it's closer here, right? You get the pole screw poking out like about like this, you know, just above. And I do radius the heights because the strings on a bridge are radius. What's happening is you're bringing more of the strong part of the magnetic field closer to the string. You're bringing the magnets closer. You're bringing the whole thing up. So when the string vibrates over the pickup, it's disturbing more of the magnetic field as opposed to the thinner, weakened part of the magnetic field up here from the pole screw being raised up really high, right? So though this works, you might get more clarity. You're not going to get much more thickness, much more grunt out of it this way versus raising the whole thing. Raising the whole thing, you're going to get more signal because the string is disturbing the magnetic field even more, thus sending out a stronger signal out to the amp. So that's why Uncle Larry's trick of raising the whole pickup versus just the pole screw. The same applies with, well, obviously the same doesn't really apply with one of these because there's no adjustable poles here. On a humbucker, here's a good one. On a humbucker, these are obviously not adjustable. These are the slugs. These are the pole screws. You could raise those out. Sometimes what I do when I have a neck pickup that's a little too full, I would maybe lower the pickup and raise the pole screws a little bit just to get a little bit more clarity. That usually works. But then you can lose some clarity if you lower the whole pickup too low because now your signal strength is also dropping. So that's essentially it. Like, it's not rocket science or anything like that. You're raising the whole body of the thing because you're raising the magnets and the coil. So the whole magnetic field is being raised closer to the string with the pickup versus being stretched at the top versus via the pole screw. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it makes sense to me. I mean, that's how I, visualize it. But I think it's especially prominent with P90s because you've got the two magnets instead of just the one, right? Or like this here, they're like, yeah, there's 6 magnets, but they're little magnet rods, right? But they are the whole pole screw, but they're generally, they're not as strong as a full-on P90. Like, there's a lot more pull on the pole screw there. So I guess I've explained it as best I can, I think. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if that made sense. But raising the whole body, especially when it comes to P90, raising the whole body of the whole thing, you're going to get a much fuller, stronger signal across the board. Whereas here, you're going to maybe get a little bit more top end signal, but there's still a lot of that information missing because the string isn't disturbing the stronger part of the magnetic field versus this, which would be, right at the string. So hopefully you enjoyed my beautiful drawing here. If you would like to purchase it, I can sell it to you for the sum of nothing. It's probably going to go in the garbage. No one wants to buy this. Yeah, I guess that wraps that. Did that make sense? So now I gotta basically package these up because I'm gonna send them off for ship them out to the customers. Do you want to see what a box looks like? How I box it up? It's pretty basic stuff. Usually, I roll up the wire, slide it into these nice little bags, and then I put them in the box. Thank you to anyone who's put in orders through the site. It means a lot. You're supporting, small Canadian business. Someone who's making these, as a player, for players. I'm not doing this for a living or to, build an empire or anything like that. I'm mainly making these because it's not really that profitable. The market, the pickup market is so saturated. There's stuff at every price point and stuff. I would be making these for myself regardless, but I offer them for sale. That's why I don't carry a lot of stock. A lot of it is you pop in an order. If I don't have it in the ready to ship, it's, I get the order, I order parts in unless I have them on hand and build it right there and build it for each customer. And that's just how I do this. That's how I've been doing it for a number of years, going back to 2013, 2014. So, I've been at this a while. That being said, I'm still fairly new compared to some other makers. Right. So, yeah, man. Thanks to everyone who popped in orders. It does mean a lot. You're supporting, like I said, small business. Someone who's not. I'm not selling stuff for the sake of selling stuff. I'm selling stuff because I feel like I make decent pickups and that I open the door so that if someone else wants to try them out, see what it's all about, they can. And if they don't want to, you don't have to. So these get boxed in like this. I'm going to throw in some foam in this as well, in case they're needed. I do have springs and screws. There's two types of screws. They can go ahead and pick the screws they need there. There's springs to go underneath, but also I'm including foam. It's just what we do. Then we need, of course, throw in a business card, right? There's information on there on the other side to, contact me in case something goes wrong, right? Like, hey, I installed them, they sounded great, and then they stopped working. In the 11 or 12 years of making pickups, actually, I've been making pickups longer than that. Regardless, in the number of years, in the decade plus of making pickups, I've had two that failed, and one may have been user error, but I fixed it anyways. And the second one, most recent one, we fixed here on the show, and it ended up being, I think, a cold solder joint. Happens, but it's rare. So this is what it looks like. I usually put my business card on top like that. Then you get a handwritten specs card. I slide that on the top, just like this. Just peel it over, but of course, trying to show you quickly on camera for the sake of showing you, and it's not holding, but essentially you open the box and this is what you got. Fold the box over like that. And then I like to seal it with this on one side. It helps hold the whole thing together and not tear the label. This is a funny story. This is a roll of aluminum tape that you would use on ductwork for your furnace. And I've had this roll. I've had this same roll since I started making pickups. So it's like a 13, like, let's say I started shipping out pickups in 2014. So 11 years at least. So it's over 10 years old, that roll of tape. But I do like to seal it so that way there, if you receive this and this has been cut, then you know that someone between me shipping it out and you receiving it, someone got in them. Then on the other side, you get the label with the handwritten stuff of what's in there. You get the date of when it was wound and stuff. I usually send out pictures of the build process, kind of like, here's the parts I'm using, and here's some of the steps along the way, and then the final product. I didn't for these two pickups because I just had so much on the go and forgot to take pictures. But I do tend to want to focus on properly, winding these, making these, waxing these, and all that. So then you're done. You've got this. So this is what you would be receiving. And it's not super fancy packaging, but it's pretty decent. Like, the whole process is all handmade by me, and people seem to like them, and that's awesome because I like them too. And I run all these pickups. Like, every pickup I sell, especially the ones that like I have like in the menu, or that I put in the ready to ship. Like, all that stuff is stuff that I've tested and put through these guitars. May even still be in some of them, right? Like, they might process, you throw them into every guitar and try and see, and then make tweaks and stuff. I used to have a 593, like a more high output pickup. 593 and a 508. There's a 508 here. And through that process, I was trying to aim for modern tones, like one more on the older side of modern, and one on the more current side of modern. And what I found was one was a little too dark, the older one, like in the 90, like I called it a 593 because I'm thinking like that range, the kind of high output pickups you get there, versus what you're getting now with a lot of the 7-string and stuff. They tend to want a 7 or 8 string. You actually need a lower output pickup, really, because you need more clarity and less low end, because it's got so much low end coming out of the guitar as it is, with the low tunings and the bigger strings and stuff. And where I settled with was between those two pickups, the 593 and the 508 and the 506, which is this Alnico 6 version of the 508. I ended up finding a nice medium spot that I called the 595, which kind of gets me I'm able to get the Alice in Chains facelift type sounds there, or any of those, like that era, facelift and dirt, Alice in Chains. But you can pull into like more modern metal too, and everything in between. It's just a really cool spec, but it took me time to work through these pickups, and I do put them through my guitars and play them. So anything I sell is stuff that I use. I'm rambling on about my own brand again. Sorry about that. But yeah, so I don't know if Tom knows how the P90 is put together and how it works and why it does the effect that it does when he does his thing. I'm sure he does. I mean, he's been playing guitar for a long time. He's been a pro, since the 90s, pretty much, in Nashville. So I'm sure he knows. Maybe he just didn't want to get into the semantics of the whole thing. I did just now, just because it's an idea of stuff to do. Coming up with ideas for actual videos that I feel are worth the time to sit through as a viewer. Those ideas are hard to come by. Cat hair flying all over the place. Because I don't want to get in on these trends of there's a lot of YouTube channels. Pick your topic. There's hundreds of channels, right? I'm just adding more to that sludge, that swamp of guitar-related YouTubes. But I get tired of the one YouTuber will jump on this topic, and then all of a sudden all the others do too, or a new product comes out, and the day it launches, all the YouTube channels I watch are all showcasing the same piece of gear, and I don't want to do that. I want to kind of find ways where I can show people stuff that you can use, where maybe it's not about buying gear, at least not all the time. But yeah, so P90s, you raise them, you're raising the whole magnetic field up to the string. If you're just raising the pole pieces, you're just stretching it thinner, sort of, at the top. It's not transferring as much magnetic strength, to the string as much as raising the whole thing. 2 magnets in a P90. Same concept with the humbucker, but I think it's not as noticeable, I think, because you've got 2 coils and 1 magnet and pole screws and slugs. So it's a different design. So it still does the thing, but it's not as obvious and audible as P90. That's that. I don't know what to play. I don't know what else to talk about. I do have a guitar coming up that a buddy has that sat around for 15 years or so, and he's looking to learn to play again. So I'm going to be probably going through that and overhauling it. So we'll do that on the show. Until then, have a great week. Have a great weekend, and I'll try to make it not a month before the next video, in case some of you care.